Hello, everyone. This is my recap and review of the Rehearsal, Season 2, Episode 2, Star Potential. Let's get into it. Wings of Voice. The show opens with Nathan ushering first officers into rooms where they will hear singers audition for a fake show called Wings of Voice. First officers are supposed to only give the most talented singers a golden ticket. The standard is Star Potential. We learn that one of Nathan's first jobs in television was being a junior producer for Canadian Idol. He would determine the artists with star potential before they had the opportunity to sit with the celebrity judges. Nathan blesses us with pictures during this time period, which definitely indicate an individual willing to stand their ground. Nathan contends with the reality that people in a junior producer position are often paralyzed by the fact that the words that come out of their mouths will devastate another person. He relates this to the relationships between the first officer and their captains. They can't imagine a way for the interaction to go well, is the quote that he provides. Nathan wonders if people can be or feel rejected and still feel good. We see Moody is one of the first officers who auditioned the singers, but he makes no other appearance throughout the show, which I was a bit saddened by. I know we'll eventually get some form of update about him and his relationship, but not today. There is a segment where he explains the show to an auditioner and her mother. And he says, quote, "It's not a singing TV show, it's actually a singing competition as part of another TV show that has nothing to do with singing." So again, a lot of hilarious moments from Nathan off bat from this episode. Someone on Twitter pointed out that despite spending likely millions to replicate airports and bars at studios in LA, Nathan draws the line at licensing songs. So all the auditioners in this show basically had to sing public domain song, which also created a little bit of interest there. And the more that I think about it, I feel like most singing shows should require that. It would kind of allow you to really assess the voice of somebody when the vast majority of people are required to sing the same 5 to 10 songs. Anyway, we finally get to see some of these auditions, and unfortunately, we see a cute Asian girl get rejected, then comforted by her father, who assures her that he's always proud of her. Nathan then says he's brought Canadian Idol back to life. Nathan points out a first officer who gives every auditioner a golden ticket. He asks her about giving a golden ticket to everyone. He talks about the quote-unquote hard work of saying no. So here, I'm going to amend my theory from my first rehearsal video. I mentioned hierarchies, both real and imagined, creating dynamics where people use deferential language to address people they believe they are inferior to. However, in the audition room, the co-pilot has unilateral control. To the auditioner, the co-pilots are the ones in charge, and yet we see an example of someone unwilling to reject any of the auditioners. The simple answer is that people want to be liked and tend to avoid confrontation. As kids, we are slowly bred to not quote-unquote start arguments, and then as adults, we see how people who vocalize their perspective often get villainized and scrutinized by society in a way that people who just keep to themselves do not. Regardless of our status in life, we're groomed to make people like us, even if that means selling a lie. So everyone in our life gets a golden ticket, when sometimes they deserve a blue slip with some of our thoughts on their actions. So let's get to the likability scale. Back to the show, Nathan speaks about a method of rejection that left everyone happy. He puts ballot boxes for the singers to rate the first officer's likability from a scale of 1 to 10. At the bar owned by Nathan, the Lizard Lounge, which is a replica of a real bar created for a rehearsal in the first season of the Rehearsal, and that everything that happened in the Lizard Lounge in season 1, amazing. Actually, and now I feel like I need to rewatch season 1, even though I've already watched that entire season 2 times already. The co-pilots meet to discuss their experience auditioning the singers. One of the co-pilots, Mara D, scored an average 9. Puzzled by Mara D's success, Nathan auditions singers for himself. Of course, the first singer he auditions is genuinely phenomenal. I was so confused. I was like, he's gonna tell her no. But a part of me was just like, get this girl a contract. Maybe the fact that she was even featured in this show in HBO hopefully might get her attention of somebody, because that girl can sing. But anyway, Nathan needs to reject her for the plot. So this next part bothered me a bit, but essentially he rejects the singer in the most awkward way possible. The reason why Nathan's response bothers me is because we all know that his awkwardness is a bit put on. I have no doubt that he's also a bit awkward in real life, but everyone is. It's clear that in his day-to-day life, he's somewhat more charismatic than even the average person, and maybe I'm over-exaggerating here, but I do think there's some evidence to that, and we saw that in season 1 of The Rehearsal when he was interacting with the kid. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, everyone's good with kids, and that kid seemed especially keen on having a father, but to be clear, I have definitely met people awkward around kids, and Nathan is not one of those people. Nathan, you could tell when he's like, I want to be sincere for these people, and the kids, putting the kids in season 1 was so important because it really put into context that Nathan knows how to interact with humans and not make them feel weird. Also, in a Nathan For You episode, there's a part where he pretends to be a quote-unquote cool guy and totally nails that stereotype. I included the link in the description below. It's also very funny. But if you want any awareness of how Nathan can turn his quote-unquote swagger on, that was the parlance of the time, you should definitely look at the episodes below. I guess I just wanted to see him truly try to be charismatic outside of this put-on character, and I'm not really sure I got evidence of that here. And I'll kind of amend that very same statement I just made at the end of this video, but here we go. Anyway, unsurprisingly, he received a 2 rating for being plain and monotone. He talks to Mary D more to get some advice. Nathan then watches her footage and concludes that the reason Mary D scores so well is because she uses the word fantastic a lot. So my personal assessment of Mary D is that she is sincere in her enthusiasm for the future success of singers auditioning with her. She smiles when they walk in and asks for their name and about how they're doing that day, trying to diffuse the tension inherent in an audition space. Then, after they sing, she provides feedback that signals that she was paying close attention to them. Again, I'm well aware Nathan is doing a bit, but I just want to provide my own assessment of Mary D because I do think sometimes that does happen in real life. We'll see somebody and we'll repeat exactly what they say and what they do, and not realize that there's an entire ecosystem at work there that causes one person to be more charismatic than another. Nathan incorporates fantastic in the next audition he has with Austin. Austin was a bit shaky but pretty decent in singing. He also was half naked. He had he had a vest with no shirt underneath it. It was kind of cool actually. Nathan again is awkward. Austin gives him a score of 4. Nathan gets Austin to return to the audition space to get specific feedback on why he gave Nathan a 4. Here's another example of somebody avoiding confrontation, because instead of giving an honest answer, Austin says that he was nervous and didn't know what was happening. After being shown a video from Mary D, Austin explains that Mary D's aura is the reason for the different outcome. Austin believes that auras can't be changed, but Nathan is determined to change his aura. And I agree with Nathan. Auras can be changed. It might take a lot of work for certain people, but it's definitely possible. But, I caveat, I flip-flop back and forth. I think auras can be changed. I think the question really is how long can you sustain that aura? I think that I realized, unfortunately, really young that I could sustain my aura for maybe an hour tops, but after an hour I'm dead. So maybe I think that's a quote-unquote definition of introvert, but in general I think a lot of people can emulate aura. It's just the problem is how long that aura can last. Mara D talks to Nathan about some experiences she has as a first officer with some pilot who had inappropriate conversations with her, and it sparks Nathan to consider observing an interaction between a real captain and a first officer. At the bar, he invites captains to join the co-pilots so that he can observe them. Nathan notices a change in energy, probably due to a fellow named Jeff, and I truly think it was only Jeff that truly changed the energy. He does showcase these 2 other pilots who have an awkward conversation, but once we meet Jeff, we could see how he could really kill the vibe in a room. In a private conversation with Jeff, Nathan unveils that Jeff is a misogynistic weirdo. Jeff says that he feels uncomfortable with female co-pilots because sometimes some things that he might say he thinks are funny can offend his female co-pilot. And I wonder why. And it's so crazy because I think actually independently just saying that is not... I'm not saying that I wouldn't put red flags in my mind. I think most women that would definitely raise red flags. But the kicker is what we find out next. Still, Jeff claims that he can read a room. Yet, here's the list we get. He's been banned from Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, and Seeking Arrangements, which is a website for sugar babies and daddies. It cannot be overstated how hard it is to be banned from all of these sites. I'm assuming it has something to do with him sharing sexual content, But the fact that he's volunteering this information is wild. I would never, I mean, even if you are in this situation, which Jeff clearly out of whack, you have cameras on you. If I'm an employer, I'm definitely concerned about what this man could possibly be bringing in a professional environment. And speaking of which, Nathan has the brilliant idea of putting Meredith and Jeff in a cockpit simulation together. I felt so bad for Meredith because she already told Nathan about a bad interaction she had with a captain who had inappropriate conversations, but I guess Nathan just needed to see it firsthand. Meredith does what most smart women do in this situation and goes along to get along. Jeff asks about Meredith's romantic life. When Meredith confirms that she's single, Jeff's weird ass immediately jumps to her being quote-unquote celibate. So it's clear that he's really just interested in her sex life, not her romantic life. And yes, those two things are different. Asking somebody about romantic life, which is actually what most normal people do, is normal. Asking somebody about their sex life is very strange. Jeff then suggests hooking Meredith up with his father. And I was weirded out by that because I was like, I don't even think you guys are that far apart in age. Maybe 10 years, and that might be a lot for a lot of people, but 10 years isn't enough for me to be suggesting you to my father of all people. Anyway, let's get to the next conversation that comes up, which is Holocaust awareness is not anti-Semitic or Summit Ice. I just felt like Summit Ice was more concise to put in the slide, so that's why it's up there. Nathan manages to connect the cockpit conversation to his own tribulations. He talks about Summit Ice, which is a brand he started in 2015 in response to a famed Canadian brand, Taiga, writing a tribute for a known anti-Semite and Holocaust denier. Taiga was a brand Nathan wore prominently throughout Nathan For You, and in response created Summit Ice to allow people to trade in their Taiga outerwear for Summit Ice, a brand with an explicit mission to educate people about the Holocaust. The funny thing, of course, is that the brand includes a lot of Holocaust imagery in its branding to help people remember the Holocaust and to not deny it. So basically, the logo or the brand tagline is "Deny Nothing." And one of the reasons why he uses a lot of this imagery of the Holocaust is because he went to a rabbi for counsel, and the rabbi said, you should use this in your you are definitely creating like an alternative to Taiga, but you need to do something that actively gets people who are buying Summit Ice to remember the Holocaust. So that was the idea, of course, and Nathan took it one step further, and now everything related to Summit Ice includes imagery of the Holocaust. And as you can see in this image, this is a poster of, I think, of a pop-up that he had for Summit Ice, and you see that he has a picture of Auschwitz, and then he also has a picture of one of the Nazi speeches that was given by Hitler. So yeah, it's a very funny episode, and it is available on HBO. I checked and I rewatched it just for this. And yeah, I think it's really wild that this was ever considered anti-Semitic. But let's get into it. For some reason, Paramount Plus took this episode down. Nathan replicates the email correspondence with Paramount Plus with his body double, also a callback to a Nathan For You episode. Nathan mentions The Curse, which is a fiction series he made with Emma Stone and Benny Safdie. He implies that the show hasn't been renewed, in part because of his tense relationship with Paramount Plus because of his episode takedown. As somebody who has watched most of the season of The Curse, I remember I'm pretty sure I got to the second to last episode. I do not know what happened in my life. I think I just got really busy, but I don't have Showtime anymore. I'm not purchasing a Showtime membership. Anyway, I could say that The Curse is just not palatable for the masses, and it's likely that that's the reason why the show hasn't been renewed yet. But it's funny for him to kind of be like, and this is why they're not renewing my episode, because they're anti-Semitic. I just like that idea where he's kind of playing at this idea that he wants Showtime to renew his season. And I also would say, if you liked Beau Was Afraid, which I love that movie by Ari Aster, I would highly recommend The Curse. The Curse, I really liked it. I like weird things, so The Curse was for me. Anyway, Nathan acknowledges he used hedging language in communicating with Paramount Plus to get an explanation for the episode takedown. He uses 3 exclamation points despite being frustrated, which contradicts his memory of being pushy. Paramount Plus finally gave an explanation, which states that in late 2023, Paramount Plus Germany decided to remove the episode from the region after they became uncomfortable with anything they call quote-unquote anti-Semitic after the Israel-Hamas attacks. attacks. Now, for legal context, Germany prohibits publicly denying the Holocaust and disseminating Nazi propaganda, both off and online. This includes sharing images such as swastikas, wearing an SS uniform, and making statements in support of Hitler. As evidence in the pictures shown here, Summit Ice does include Nazi imagery, but it does not support Nazism. It's a rebuttal of Holocaust denial. Moreover, Paramount Germany's decision seems to fall in line with a broader trend in the world where, in the midst of the Palestine-Israel conflict, there has been broader definitions for what counts as anti-Semitism. And in this broad sweep, incidents like a Jewish man trying to combat Holocaust denial through humor is now being considered anti-Semitic. So you have to take a really, when I tell you, you have to take such a cursory view of the events of Summit Ice in that episode to deem it anti-Semitic. It's really wild. And then I don't understand why Paramount's Germany decision then spread across the world. And of course, Nathan has a very funny graphic of Paramount Plus Germany's ideas spreading across all Paramount Plus, and I was like, for some reason, I don't think a lot of people in the Republic of Congo are watching Nathan For You, but okay, let's go. But you see Paramount Plus's Germany Paramount Plus spreading about. Nathan points out Paramount Plus hypocrisy, since their platform has results for Nazi and Hitler, but none for Judaism. And boom, there we have it. That is actually really poignant, I think, especially considering how many amazing shows are out there that are about Judaism. That is something that needs to be called out. Nathan has always confronted his Jewish identity throughout his shows, including a pretty significant scene in season 1 of The Rehearsal, where he insists on his fake son learning about Judaism, despite the Christian zealousness of his child's fake mother. So I truly understand his frustration about his content being described as anti-Semitic. There's also another thing. I've watched a movie, and the name is evading me. One of the weigh-ins was in the movie, but it was about this blackface doll and a black man collecting these blackface dolls. And so one can imagine that that's racist, but it's really not. And I also know a friend who is a black man who collects these blackface dolls, and there is a name for them, again evading me at this moment, but yes, it kind of can feel weird, but you understand why it is. And as a black man, he was like, I'm owning these dolls because I don't feel comfortable with white people having these in his house, and he started collecting these blackface dolls after going into a white person's house and seeing them. And it's those dolls with those big red lips, like giant red lips, and like the droopy eyed girl. Yeah, so it's good that he took them, and I think it does make more sense in a black person's house than it does in a white person's. Anyway, back to Meredith and Jeff. Jeff says he'd be willing to wife up somebody if they were open to non-monogamy. I just felt that this is wild. Jeff, you're 45. What are you talking about wifing someone up? I think you should delete the idea of wifing someone up under the age of 28, because if you're over 28, wifing somebody up that's what you should be doing. Just be a mature adult about it. Say you're going to get married to someone. I have no idea why Jeff was talking about wifing someone up. Also, he admits that he downloaded Duolingo in order to get him a Latina. And I promise you, he's probably talking about Miami. Mara D is clearly uncomfortable and shoots her own shots, implying that Jeff wouldn't be able to keep his children alive, which I think so. But Jeff kind of knows this already and says that he would hire a nanny. Mara D finally shuts Jeff down when he tries to ask about her age, and she does that very truthfully. So anyway, let's get to the Nathan Reich. In addressing Nathan's conflict with Paramount Plus, he decides to make a replica of what he imagines the German Paramount Plus offices to look like. He basically frames Germany Paramount Plus as a Nazi extension. It kind of was really nice and beautiful in my opinion. I was like, how did he get all this money for this? And if you haven't watched Zone of Interest, which I highly recommend, although I want to prepare you for some emotional standpoints, it definitely gave Zone of Interest vibes. And of course, that's because Zone of Interest is about Nazi Germany. The fake Paramount Plus representative looks like a Nazi sergeant and explains that they remove content that may invoke hate or incite violence against any group of people. Nathan argues that they should allow Jewish people to express themselves, especially when it comes to their art. Nathan is dissatisfied with the simulation and asks the actors to speak freely. The actors, although I think Nathan did script this, say that Nathan would not be open to feedback because he constructed the simulation to make Paramount Plus, and Germans look like Nazis. The simulation is not sincere, and this is all just a grudge. I definitely think Nathan took it a bit far, but yeah, I also think I would also be very upset if I were in Nathan's position. So I could just imagine him just for months, years maybe, years just, at least 1 year, determining how he's going to get back at Paramount Plus. And there's nothing like all of his fans going at Paramount Plus and being like, hey, just put that episode back up. It is not anti-Semitism. Nathan says something extremely profound in this moment. He says that he felt that sincerity is overrated. It just ends up punishing those who can't perform it as well as others. This really got me thinking about a lot of things, including my assessment of Mara D. What if at her core she's just someone who learned how to perform sincerity better than others? What is it that what if that's what all charismatic and likable people are about, right? And it's not a coincidence that actors are known to be quite charismatic, right? This idea that they know how to perform, and so they can perform their charisma when they're doing interviews, when they're doing press runs. So that's something I've thought about. And as I've gotten older, I've definitely lost my ability to perform sincerity. Sincerity looks cute when you're 24, but it can come off a bit cringy and even annoying as you enter your 30s. I wonder how many situations involve people being sincere, but then being punished because they're not performing it in the right way. Also makes me question my own judgment of Nathan. As I said earlier, I say that he's performing his awkwardness, which I still kind of believe, but what if that's really just him being his sincere? I don't know. It's hard for me to grasp. Tell me your thoughts about Nathan's sincerity. I do feel like he puts on this awkwardness in order to distance himself from the sort of play that he's doing against other people, but I'm not really sure. Nathan showcases the conundrum in a final audition feedback episode. A girl named Sophia strums the guitar and sings. She's 15. Nathan asks what she wants to do with her life. She affirms that she wants to be a singer. Nathan then confirms she won't be going to the next round, but says she will succeed because she continues to try even in the face of failure. He defines success as the willingness to take the risk. He then shades people who are at home because they clearly saw a Wings of Voice ad and thought it was a bit sketchy. I just thought about that when I was like, he's like, they're not here. They're not trying. I'm like, they're not here because Wings of Voice, probably they knew something was up with that. And there's actually people have drummed up Reddit feeds that are talking about their audition experience and proving that, yeah, people were weirded out by the ad put out for Wings of Voice. Anyway, Sophia confirms she's still disappointed. Nathan encourages her not to give up. We see the smile he had for her fade as soon as she leaves. Sophia gives Nathan a likability score of 6, but of course he flips it to show a 9. Another great episode of The Rehearsal. It kind of made me feel better about myself. There have been a lot of moments in my life where I felt bad because my sincerity doesn't look like other people's, including this YouTube channel. Like, I really wish I could talk like some of these other YouTubers that are so charismatic and they just seem to be off the cuff. And I also need, of course, learn how to edit. But at the end of the day, everyone performs sincerity differently. And I also want to learn more about not punishing others for not performing sincerity right way. And I think there's so many cases where the general public says, you're not being honest, you're not being true. And it's like, what are we assessing this off of? Are we assessing this off of somebody not coming off like a Ryan Reynolds or, and even though I know Ryan Reynolds has a lot of criticism against him, but I'm just talking about these conventionally charismatic and people that considered sincere, maybe a Denzel Washington type, those individuals. Why are we always comparing people's sincerity to these performers when the average person's sincerity just might look different? This episode has challenged me to consider whether or not my assessment of somebody's sincerity is based off of a performance or reality. And until next time, this was Strategic Delusion. Thank you for listening.